Hello YouTube, and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. My name is Kevin, and in this video, I am going to be debunking briefly one meme that is just so ubiquitous and just so cringe and so overplayed and uncritical. And this, of course, is the meme, the talking point, the cultural sort of obsession over my birth rates and the idea of birth rates and how they are just too low. And I am in this video, of course, only going to be discussing these in a limited context, right? Because I don't want to make a 2-hour video here. I'd rather make several different videos addressing different aspects of this topic, which is what I'm going to do. This one, we're starting with the military. So, there is a talking point in the zeitgeist, and it's more neckbeardy and everything these days in our current zeitgeist, but of course, this has been a talking point for thousands of years, of course. 100%, thousands of years. That, ever since tribes waged war on the savannah, 500,000 years ago, birth rates were a determining factor in the outcome of which tribe would be victor. 100%. 100%. And when I say I'm debunking this meme, yeah, it was a meme that had basically, solid ground, solid footing, 100% for the bulk of human history. Basically up to around the period of the Enlightenment. Now, in the West, of course. Now, the reason why this is a bunk meme and it deserves to be debunked as bunk is because if you are somebody who argues that, as the alt-right tend to do, for example, that we are weakened as a civilization, we have a reduced capacity to defend ourselves because our birth rates are lower now, for example, than they were 100 or 200 or 500 years ago. That on its own may sound logical because, well, you think, of course, well, lower birth rates, fewer people. So if the other side has constant birth rates, they'll have more people. Therefore, if war breaks out, we'll be outnumbered, and then therefore we'll be defeated. That's more or less the logic of the meme, right? That's kind of it's kind of more or less the what would you call it? The argument from the people that level this sort of criticism of contemporary culture, that argue that my birth rates are too low. My birth rates, they're so low. That's more or less what the neckbeards exclaim, right? Well, here's the deal. This ignores technology, obviously. Now, there isn't really a relationship between technological capability and the birth rates. And if it exists, it's an inverse one, in the sense that a more technologically advanced country is likely to have fewer kids per capita. Why? Well, for starters, if you're more technologically advanced, you're going to be the first to discover birth control. If you're less technologically advanced, it's going to take you a lot longer to invent birth control. And realistically speaking, given the way that human history has unfolded, there is no catching up and inventing it. It's basically incumbent on the one who discovered it first to have their charities in the West to distribute them to Africa, India, all these other places in the world that were never really going to invent them, given the unfortunate state of political turmoil within those countries. There are not the legal institutions and frameworks in a lot of these countries that would ever enable sophisticated pharmaceutical industries and research and development to manifest, unfortunately. So in that sense, it's incumbent upon the inventor to go about and to some extent alleviate the burden of the rest of the world. You know, if you're the first one to discover a cure, you don't necessarily want to hold on to that for yourself. Now, sure, you want to make a profit. You want the patent for yourself, but you're not going to withhold a cure for cancer. You're not going to withhold birth control from the rest of the world. No. So in that sense, yeah, it's the most technologically advanced country that comes up with that. But of course, they're also going to be the civilization that has the most readily available access to it, especially initially. Of course, what's one of the results of that? Well, lower birth rates, obviously. But here's the thing. That was basically inevitable, that it would be the most technologically advanced of the civs that would discover birth control. So it is in that sense kind of determined. It's kind of set. If you're very backward and uneducated and you're the kind of civilization that shuns higher research and burns heretics and that sort of thing, yeah, you're probably never going to discover it. So you're going to have higher birth rates. Yeah, and here's the deal. You're also going to be a troglodytic backwater that really doesn't have advanced technology in other areas either. And that is a fact. And here's the thing about the whole birth control thing. So that advanced civilization that discovers it, right? So in this case, you know, it's the West. You know, birth control pills, all that stuff. It's Western. West is the most advanced. The West is the best, of course. Here's the thing about it. It's basically a trade-off. If I'm an alt-right neckbeardy or a tanky neckbeard type person, I would see it as it's the price to pay for being the most advanced country, that you have to accept that, yeah, you're also going to invent birth control. Now, of course, I don't see it that way. I see birth control as a good thing, of course. And I think that it should be exported and perpetrated throughout the world. It should absolutely be available throughout the world. Here's the thing, of course. The technology, even if you are that neckbeardy type person, having that advanced tech is still going to make you have that competitive edge, even though you have fewer babies. I mean, think about it. Simple trade-off, you know? It's like, if you ever played the game Civilization before, it's like if you never really invest in your military too much, but early on in the game you built a bunch of archers, and nobody ever really invaded you, and you just kept those archers around. You never upgraded them because you were busy on, like, you know, doing whatever. I don't know, sending, you know, say workers or something out to, like, build some dirt roads around, or maybe you were like somebody who was big on building granaries and stuff, and you never really got around to upgrading your archers. But you've got a lot of cities, and you've got big populations in them. Like, some of your cities are like 20, population of 20 and stuff. And then, you know, fast forward, and it's like the year 1850 in the Civ game, right? Now, all of a sudden, you know, England invades you. And England's small. And they come in. And you're like, oh, well, they only have like 3 cities. And their biggest city, you know, their capital has like 8. It's got a population of 8. They have hardly any people. Like, you're literally, your Civ has like 100 times as many people as they do. And you've got all these archers, like a ton of archers. And you've got some warriors and stuff. They come in. And they bring in, like, I don't know, let's just say 1 mechanized infantry unit. They might be able to kill like all of your archers. I mean, they might not be able to take all of your cities right away or anything. You know, it'd be a trek. But my point here, of course, is that with their army that's like 1/20th the size of yours, well, their technology is like 2,000 years ahead. So boom, you know, like the archers, they do like 1 damage, and then boom, you know, mechanized infantry. 100 damage, boom, they're dead, and they just keep on going, kicking ass and taking names. That's basically what we're in, right? And the thing is, though, you could say, you know, you could have the advanced technology and have the high birth rates, right? You just force people to have kids or whatever. No, not really, because if you're the kind of civilization that has the moral duplicity and the moral degeneracy to force people to have children, yeah, you were probably never that auspicious to creating advanced tech in the first place. You're probably going to stay backwater, third world type, troglodytic, unadvanced country. That's what you'll be, because these things are related. You can't just adopt the methods and the cultures of very, very, very backward civilizations and expect that you'll be able to couple that with the advanced tech of your civilization. Because if you were going to do that, you never would have had that tech in the first place, because those kinds of civs never advanced that far. And if you tried to make it happen after you advanced that far, guess what? The people aren't going to settle for it. Sure, maybe a few neckbeards do. Don't get me wrong. Like we can see in the West right now. You know, you're driving home from work, pass a bunch of houses. Say you pass like 75 houses on your commute home to work. You know, out of like, say maybe 3 of those houses, there's like 28-year-old neckbeard dude who's like super overweight, and you know he's you know basically you know he masturbates to anime, cartoon child pornography basically, and mom makes him hot pockets, and he goes on 4chan and he talks about how my birth rates are too low and how he can't get laid and all this crap. Those people are out there. Guess what? They are a very small percentage. They are a vanishingly small fringe and cringe contingency of our population. And they are not the ones that necessarily ever have the access to power to implement their troglodytic views. They are not the leaders. They do not become the chief executive officers. They are not the type of people that are winning. They are not the type of people that have the power to make the world as they would wish. They simply aren't. They're losers. They take the L. That's what they do. That's what they do all day. They take the L. They eat the Hot Pockets. They spill some of it on their shirt, and they don't wash it, and they walk around in public with the stained shirt. Why? Because they take the L. That's all they know how to do. Is they only know how to take the L. They're neckbeards. That's what they are. They're alt-right neckbeards. And of course they're going to talk about my birth rates. Yeah, their birth rates are too low because they can't get laid. They're incels. That's it, right? And they would rather want the government to force everybody to copulate or whatever, because yeah, that would give them a chance at getting laid or whatever. I mean, unbelievable. This gives you a mindset of where this argument is coming from, of course. But from the most insidious aspects of it, of course. Some people, they just parrot the argument without really thinking about it. Because, yes, as I mentioned earlier, throughout much of history, this was a legitimate argument. So, Israelites versus Canaanites, for example. Whichever tribe has, like, slightly more babies than the other, over 30 years, if they come into war with each other, having an extra kid might make the difference between war being a victory or giving rise to a defeat for your entire people, right? Nowadays, that's not the case. We literally have drone warfare. Like, you can pilot a drone on the other side of the planet from a box in Arizona and be one person, and you can command, you know, a drone squadron. You can do it. Like, there's so much that technology has allowed us to do because we are such an advanced and enlightened civilization, and we do have a culture that is auspicious towards innovation. I am convinced that even an army 20 times the size and conventional troops, if they invaded America, they would get destroyed. They would get wrecked so hard, even with 20 times the troops. Why? Because America has the best weaponry in the world. America has the best technology in the world. America is that way for a reason. North Korea, if you include their conscripts, it's about 7 million troops. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of troops. South Korea, about 600,000 troops or so. If they conscripted, they could get over 1 million. They'd still be outnumbered 7-1. Now, if America didn't intervene, I think South Korea would probably lose because North Korea has the nuclear weapons and all this other area. But if we're talking about a conventional war, South Korea could actually repel a force that's 7 times bigger than them, because their technology is just so much better. They have food and everything. The North Koreans, even their most elite soldiers, as we learned from that, you know, fabled defection that happened a couple of years ago with the man who he ran across the DNC amidst literally taking fire, and he sustained gunshot wounds, right? What did they find? They found parasites in his body from the food that he was eating in North Korea. He was an elite special forces soldier, privileged enough to be allowed near the DMZ. Think about that, the DMZ. Think about in that situation. That is amazing, because that means that the other 7 million troops over there are in worse condition They are 6 inches shorter than the South Koreans on average. But they have more kids. They have a culture that says, all the women, they have to have the kids. They're treated like cattle. They have to procreate to produce future soldiers for the dear leader. They're a communist system. They're a patriarchy. That's what they do. That it's all official. The Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, they all have their rape squads. They are as patriarchal as it gets. They're a country that operates in that way of thinking. They get their ass kicked. Why? Because that way of thinking is backwards, and it is inauspicious to innovation. North Korea barely has any lights on. They can't invent anything. They're a joke. They try to do everything on their own. They can figure out some crude nuclear weapons, sure. And even with that, they probably had Russian assistance. And Kim, he can get some swaggy yachts and some swaggy Mercedes. Guess what? Those Mercedes were made in Germany, and the Princess yacht was made in, I believe it was the UK. They were smuggled through communist China. They can't do anything on their own. That way of thinking, that type of civilization is so profoundly ill-equipped to engage in modern combat. This was thousands of years ago, and the North Koreans had 7 million troops, and the South Koreans had 600,000. We all know who's winning that war. Today, not so much, because South Korea has much better tech. And of course, the U.S. military is smaller too. U.S. doesn't have 7 million troops. U.S. doesn't have conscription. So, U.S. has about 2 million troops. Does anybody think that North Korea would win a war against the United States? It's not about the birth rates. It's not about the numbers. Numbers don't mean anything. Israel is another great example of this. All the wars, when the Arab dictatorships invaded Israel, since its inception, since Israel was founded, they've been ganged up on and invaded by the neighboring tyrannies. I mean, again, I do videos on this. I'll do more videos on this. Israel, I mean, if you're against Israel's right to existence, given the historical context, everything, there's a reason Israel has to exist. Because if it doesn't, there is no guarantee that Jewish people will be safe from being exterminated. It's as simple as that. Israel is a special state that has to exist in order to be a safe place for Jewish people, in essence. They are a bulwark. They are both a bulwark of military prowess, and they are a bulwark of technological innovation and auspiciousness in terms of research and development. They are a tech leader. Is Syria a tech leader? No. Is Jordan a tech leader? No. Is Gaza a tech leader? No. Anywhere in Palestine a tech leader? Absolutely not. So even when all those states, all those dictatorships ganged up and invaded Israel, and they outnumbered Israel by a big margin, in some of those battles Israel was outnumbered 2-1, 3-1. Israel absolutely took W's and handed out L's left and right. Why? Because those Arab dictatorships are inefficient, and all of the moves, everything has to go through the dear leader, Hafez al-Assad or whoever else, and the other respective tyrannies. Whereas in Israel, commanders are empowered to make on-the-fly, ad hoc decisions, given their professional expertise, and they know how to fight a war, and they had the technology on their side too. The Arab dictatorships got their ass handed to them, I believe, 3 times in the last 70 years or so. They had more babies. Israel doesn't have that many babies. Israel doesn't have that many people. But Israel has the tech. So I'm done with this talking point. And it is a bunk talking point that birth rates win wars, that birth rates are crucial for defense. They're not. The big determining factors in defense and power projection capability and victory are military expenditure and the technological progression and innovation in a society. In other words, even if you're just inventing stuff like iPods and commercial use goods, gum, etc., office chairs, a lot of those applications will have military, a lot of those technologies will have military applications and vice versa. So we got the internet from military research and development, for example. These things go hand in hand. And capitalism, liberalism, they breed that kind of innovation. Authoritarianism, tyranny, despotism, theocracy, ultra-conservatism, They just simply do not. And we saw this. Israel kicked the ass of the Arab dictatorships. Because this whole alt-right talking point about my birth rates, and if we just get my birth rates up, then we can win all the wars, or we can win, well, they don't say that, because of course, they're not hawks, they're isococks. They don't want to do any wars. They want Russia to cuck them on the world stage. But their idea is that, well, if we have to defend ourselves, we'll be weak if we don't have enough kids or whatever. No, it's not true, because you just need to focus on being the best at tech. Because again, who do we think wins in one of these battles? Do we think, say, an Israeli mechanized tank or an Israeli drone? Or let's say 50 conventional conscripts of the Syrian army? Who wins? Who wins? Just in a straight up battle like that. Who wins? No, the Syrian troops would get, raffle stomped. They get curb stomped. They would get taken to the back. It'd be done. They just get handed L's. Be their final L. Assad would take a big L. Why? Because countries, civilizations such as Israel, advanced liberal democracies, we only really know how to take W's, and W's breed W's, and L's breed L's. And I'm sick of this meme that it's all about my birth rates. It's not. It's about tech and having an open society, an open culture that breeds innovation. Because guess what? That's what gets you the first nuke. That's what gets you to space. That's what gets you the internet. That's what gets you mechanized infantry. That's what gets you drones. That's what gets you stealth aircraft. Does Russia have any stealth aircraft? Oh, they have their cute little, what is it, Pac 57 or something. Some cute planes, some cute tin pot planes that kind of look like a copy of an F-22. Oh yeah, those are cute. They look cool. Right? They look super cool. They've even got the ones with the backwards wings and stuff and everything. And they kind of like pretend to be stealthy and everything. And they kind of have like the stealth swag, but it's not real kind of going on. Like it's stealth playing basically. It's wannabe gangster. America's actually original gangster stealth. They're actually the best. But guess what? The radars in those planes, they're so old and so outdated. Well, I shouldn't say old. They're new. It's just Russia sucks at making radar. So they're new, but they still suck. They wouldn't detect the F-35. Like, seriously, if they went into a war with an F-35 or an F-22, the F-35, they would detect the Pac-57 or the Su-35 or whatever, fire off their missiles, turn away, shoot down the F-35 or the Su-35. Or the Pac-57, before the Russian aircraft were ever even able to detect the F-35 on their radar. Is that about my birth rates? No, it's not, because Russia has a low birth rate and America has a low birth rate. So then what is it? Oh, it's the technology. America has good technology, Russia has crappy technology. Well, why is that? The Russian people are pretty innovative, right? I mean, they're not some, nobody or whatever. They have some pretty decent tech historically. It's because their system sucks. It's because they're run by fascists. It's because they're purposefully inefficient. If they were an efficient system, Putin would be scared because he'd think there's a chance of a revolution. So we have to make things slow and rickety and inefficient in terms of the funding processes and everything for research so that the people can never rise up. Like, these things all go hand in hand. If you are a supreme leader, your aim isn't to be the cutting edge of technology. That's when things get risky. You want to slow it down so that a revolution doesn't necessarily happen. Same way as North Korea. You want to ban the internet. You want to curtail freedom of expression, etc. If somebody invents something, you might want to have them executed because they might be seen as a dissident or something, or they might not have followed the orthodoxy of the dear leaders properly. That's how these systems operate. It's not about my birth rates. My birth rates are, for all intents and purposes, in the context of modern warfare and geopolitics, essentially irrelevant. It's about the tech. It's about the innovation. And I will do a video on this, and I have in the past, but I will talk about this more. It's about the economic capacity. Oh, would you look at that? Who has the most balling economies in the world? It turns out it's the capitalist democracies. It's not the alt-righty, fascist, the nationalist states like North Korea or, Russia. It's not. It's America, it's Britain, it's Israel, it's Canada, it's France. It's all these places they call degenerate. We're all rich as hell. All the places that they want to be like North Korea and everything, fascist Russia. They're living in absolute poverty, smoking crocodile and jumping off of cranes and stuff, because or shooting up vodka and getting in car accidents and dying because it sucks to live over there. This is what wins wars. It's not the birth rates. So thank you for watching, YouTube.